In this video, I'll show you clips of some of the most important parts of the 2008 Richmond Marathon course. If you haven't had a chance to run the entire course, watching these clips will help you become more familiar with the race, so you'll know what to expect. In addition, watching the video can help you develop more vivid images of the course. You can then replay these images in your mind to help you mentally prepare for the race. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Okay, now let's get to the video clips. We'll start at the beginning with a clip of the starting line. Here we begin at the beginning of the marathon, and notice the communications tower in the background. You'll start by going northwest on Broad Street. At this time of morning, the sun will be at your back. It will be low in the sky, about 15 degrees above the horizon. The course here is flat for the first 2.4 miles as you go toward that communication tower. Starting at the green square on the map at mile 6.3, the next section travels 1.5 miles downhill from River Road to the red square at the Huguenot Bridge. This section begins just after the light at 3 Chopped Road. You're traveling west about 1.5 miles downhill. The sun will be at your back and still low in the sky. Notice the wall here on the left-hand side and the white wall on the right-hand side. Right after this, you'll see that the road begins to open up in the distance. Right after this point, you're going to go down the steepest part of the course. It's about 1,100 feet and averages about a 6% grade. When the tree canopy opens up and the course levels off, you'll see River Road Shopping Center on your right-hand side. Just beyond the left-hand curve on your left-hand side, there'll be a party zone, so it's going to get pretty loud there. Now, traveling on about 1/10 of a mile past the party zone, the road will narrow and take a sweeping left-hand turn, which will take you across the Huguenot Bridge. As you can see from the thin highlighted portion of the course profile, this next section goes uphill for about 1/3 of a mile, beginning at the Powhite Parkway. You begin at mile 11.5, crossing over the Powhite Parkway and the railroad tracks. When you see the sign here on your right-hand side to the Powhite Parkway, you'll begin a gradual uphill. It's only about 1,500 feet at an average of 4%, so it's not very steep. The sun will still be fairly low in the sky, and you'll be facing it as you go around this curve. As you crest the hill and see the light at Bliley Road in the foreground, the hill will begin to level out again. This section goes from mile 15.2 to 16.2, from Semmes Avenue taking a left onto the Lee Bridge. As you take the left-hand turn from Semmes Avenue, you'll turn onto Cowarden. As you do this, you'll be going slightly downhill, and as you go around this corner, you'll begin to cross the Lee Bridge. It can be very windy here, so prepare for that. You'll be traveling north, so the sun will be at your back and a little bit to the right. You'll see downtown Richmond on your right-hand side. You'll actually be running on the left-hand side of the road here. You'll see some joints along the bridge, like right there, so be careful of those. Continuing on through the bridge now, you begin going uphill. Now for the next 0.3 miles or so, this is actually the steepest uphill portion of the entire course. As you make this sweeping corner, you'll see this nearest building on your right-hand side. That's the Virginia War Memorial. From about this point on, you run another 1/3 of a mile to Main Street. This next section takes us from mile 19.3 to 20.1 along the boulevard over the I-94 and 64 overpass. We begin right here, and on the right you'll see the white fence of Buzz and Ned's. That'll be a party zone, so it should be fairly loud around this section. As you continue along the boulevard, you'll go slightly uphill just beyond this light at Lee Street. You're traveling north, so the sun should be at your back. This is only a very slight uphill as you cross the overpass. After you get up the hill and cross over the interstate, you begin to see the diamond on the right-hand side of the street. This final section from mile 25.9 to the finishing line takes us from 3rd Street to Carey Street. Here you'll make the left-hand turn from 3rd Street to Carey Street toward the finish line. It starts very slightly downhill until you hit the light at 4th Street. From 4th Street to 5th Street, you'll have a very gradual uphill, but it's the last uphill of the course. Pay close attention to the buildings in the skyline here. As you cross over 5th Street, it's all downhill from here. The sun will be at about a 45-degree angle to your right, and should be about 45 degrees up in the sky. This is an average of about a 3% gradient downhill to the finish line. Now here you're crossing the light at 9th Street, and just beyond it is the finish line. When you see this building to your left with a blue SunTrust sign, you're done. Now that you've watched this video from beginning to end without interruption, try watching it a second time. But this time, pause the video at different points along the course and try to observe as many details in the scene as vividly as you can. Imagine what it will look like, sound like, and feel like during the marathon. Later, you can use these images while imagining yourself coping with pre-race jitters at the starting line, working through the fatigue of the last several miles, and the feeling of exhilaration you'll get when you cross the finish line. Practice this imagery technique for 5 minutes 3 times a week, and you'll be surprised how familiar you'll feel when you actually run the race, and how mentally prepared you'll be to meet the challenges of the marathon.